Trails of Cold Steel is, right now, probably the best place to start your Trails journey, and it's where I started mine, and likely where anybody that's played the series did as well. Though, that best starting point will likely change when Sky the First's remake, is it called the first, or is it first chapter? I can't remember what they're calling it. But when that releases in 2025, that will be the objective best starting point, especially if the rest of Sky gets adapted. But we're not here to talk about Sky. I've already done that in previous videos. We're here to talk about Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2, and then in the future 3 and 4, as I'm nearly done with Cold Steel 3. Right, Cold Steel 1 and 2. What got me into Trails? Cold Steel 1 was where I started. And, you know, it's a good, solid game. I mean, I would argue it's probably weaker than 0, but it's stronger than Sky First as a starting point, which is why I say it's the best place to start, at least right now. The reason why Sky First isn't the greatest point starting is you can feel the age. You really can. And if you don't know you're going to enjoy the story and, you know, the whole game and, you know, the entire series as a whole, Sky might put you off if you start there. So if you start with Cold Steel, you'll find out whether you're going to like what you're getting into. And then if you know you're going to like it, you might as well go back and start at the very beginning. Especially because Cold Steel 2 contains some pretty hefty spoilers for Zero and Azure. And Zero and Azure contains some mild spoilers for Sky. So play Cold Steel 1, which does spoil a little bit of some stuff in Zero and Azure, but start with Cold Steel 1, and then if you like it, go back and play Sky, and then play them in chronological order from there. But beside that, let's talk about the games. Overall, not bad at all. Cold Steel 1 is, again, it's a great jumping on point. Like, again, like all of the starts of the arcs, it's a great jumping on point. I think it's a better jumping on point than Zero, because it's more, the beginning at the very least is more standalone than Zero. Zero gets very much intertwined with Sky's story, at least some character arcs of Sky quite early on. So personally, Cold Steel is a very neutral starting on point. It's very fresh, very cut and dry. It's also, from a gameplay experience, quite smooth. It's got its jank. It's got its jank, I'll tell you that. And oh boy, did I feel it after coming back from, you know, going back to Cold Steel 2 after beating Zero and Azure. But it's a decent gameplay experience as well, especially compared to Sky. I should stop with the comparisons of the starting point. But overall, it is just the best place to start right now. Right now, start with Trails of Cold Steel 1, not 2. That'd be stupid. But yeah. As for the game and the plot and the story and the characters, well, I love Class 7. Class 7 are great. They're my homies. They're the people that got me into the Trails series. Reen is my protagonist. Although, I mean, yeah, Reen is probably my favorite protagonist of the 3. Well, 4, I suppose, Kevin and Sky 3rd. But ultimately, Reen is my favorite protagonist in Trails so far. He's just him. I mean, he also has, like, what, fucking 5 games? 6 if you count Kai. 6 games where he's one of the main protagonists, where he's either the main protagonist or one of, like, yeah, it really says a lot, doesn't it? But yeah, Reen's my guy. He's a great protagonist. He's really well written overall. Yeah, he's fucking dense. He's got those anime protagonist problems, but yeah, that's probably the biggest gripe I have with Reen. And Cold Steel's a problem is it's kind of tropey in certain aspects, but it is also Trails. And so you can let go of those tropes and go, yep, ignoring the tropes, everything else is fucking incredible. Because the story is brilliant. And the way Cold Steel ties in, especially about, you know, by the end, beautiful. Beautiful. And like the stuff that Cold Steel expands on with the oh my god, it's so good. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to spoil stuff, but Reen's powers and everything going on with that, and then the Divine Knights, and oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. And the other reason why I suggest Cold Steel as a starting point, by the way, is it does have some of those like social sim aspects a la your Persona. So if you like Persona, you'll probably have an affinity for Trails of Cold Steel, just because it has some of those similar aspects in like the social sim aspects that Persona 5 has. But by the by, also being a slightly older JRPG. By older, I mean like, what, 2014, I think? The game does have a lot of hidden bullshit that if you miss, you'll be kicking yourself for because you'll lose out on a bunch of rewards, but hey, that's just all our RPGs. Cold Steel 3 has been much better with that. Like, all the hidden quests are very, not quite as hidden as they were, because they now have just markers on them, but stop. We're here to talk about Cold Steel 3. Here to talk about Cold Steel 2. Also, by the way, for watching the video is up, Merry Christmas. Hope you have a wonderful day. Anyway, carrying on with Cold Steel. But yeah, Cold Steel 1, overall, I think is a very neutral game. It's not the best, it's not the worst, it fits somewhere above. Well, I say it's not the best of the worst. I'm putting it like second from the bottom, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Like how Sky First being at the bottom doesn't mean Sky First is bad. It's just awkward. And again, so far my current ranking is Sky First, Cold Steel 1. Does that mean Cold Steel 1 is bad? No. Does that mean it's better than Sky? Probably. But it's just a quality of life experience I think that really puts Sky so far down. It's quite cruel. I keep going off topic. I should probably script these, but I don't do that. That's not my type of thing. But yeah, I love Cold Steel 1. It's what started my journey. Even though I put it so low, I do very, very much enjoy the game, the characters, and, well, the world. Because it was my first foray into it. Now, Cold Steel 2 is a game that I've got slightly mixed feelings on. It might just be because of the huge gap I took from when I got to right before the final boss. And then went to play the rest of the games, which is what I did. I played Cold Steel 1, Cold Steel 2 up until the top of the Vermilion Castle, or the Infernal Castle, sorry, and then I played the rest of the game. So there was like probably like 6-month gap between me starting, well, between me getting to right before the end of the final chapter and then actually beating Cold Steel 2. So maybe there's something there. But Cold Steel 2 is probably the third from bottom. It's just above Cold Steel 1. And I've seen like these lists people have been putting on Twitter ranking the games. People ranking Kai as well. I'm like, what? The game's not out? How the fuck are people ranking Kai? That doesn't make any sense, but okay. And what I have to say is Cold Steel 2, I feel like it falls short as the follow-up game, as a sequel game. Like, Zero is great, and then Azure is just incredible. Sky First is an alright experience, and then Sky Second is one of the greatest games in the franchise. And then Cold Steel 2 is just a midpoint, really. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff that happens, there's some crazy reveals, but I don't think they're handled properly. And there are some events that are ruined a little bit because you know the conclusion of them from having played the earlier games. I talked about this a little bit in the Zero and Azure video, but I feel like Cold Steel 2 is hurt by the fact that Trails is such a grand project. If Cold Steel 2 hadn't had some story aspects tied in with Zero and Azure, and vice versa, both those independent stories would have been stronger, but you also couldn't have done those two grand stories without having them be intertwined. So, it is a bit of a shame, really, that both those games have slight detriment due to the fact that the other is so heavily connected to them. But that doesn't mean they're bad. It's just, I feel like certain aspects, specifically a reveal right at the end of Cold Steel 2, was just, it fell a bit flat. Like, I didn't see it coming at all, and I was shocked, but I feel like the delivery and the reveal just didn't have anywhere near enough weight to it. It just kind of happened. And it almost certainly is because of the huge break I had. Maybe if I'd played the game straight, I wouldn't have been so, like, just, what is that it? When the reveal happened. Arguably, I was more surprised by, we're going to talk about spoilers now, so skip a minute ahead if you don't want spoilers. The fact that, Rufus was an Ironblood, that I didn't see coming, I'll tell you that. I did not see that. That was probably the biggest shock. But Reen being Gileath Osborne's son, I feel like it fell flat. I was shocked, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it wasn't handled the best. I feel like it just happened, and then they moved along. And yeah, it's kind of being brooded upon in Cold Steel 3, but it feels like it fell a little bit flat, like there was something missing, if I'm being entirely honest with that reveal. Also, Crow's death as well. That okay, yeah, fair. My homie Crow would have hit harder if I didn't know that he was in later games. The fact that I know he's in later games is the only reason why his death didn't affect me at all. Yeah. And obviously, with having played Cold Steel 3, if you know, you know. So yeah, some of the things, I mean, one of those things is obviously ruined by my outside knowledge of future games. Not great detail, but characters in them. And then one of them I feel like was just mishandled. As for the overall story, it's really good. I do think Cold Steel 2 is really good. It's just, it falls short of that final hurdle. Also, the last little like epilogue stuff where you go to Crossbow, that's really cool. Where Reed and Lloyd fight, that's dope as fuck. And then the like epilogue after the Crossbell stuff where you go into the Reverie corridor, kind of felt a bit superfluous. I don't really... maybe it's because I'm not seeing the grand picture, but I feel like it just didn't need to happen. Like, maybe I'll change my opinion on that as I play more and get into, well, Cold Steel 4 and Reverie. But it didn't have the same, like, oomph that I feel like the end of Cold Steel 2 should have had. It didn't have the same oomph as the end of Cold Steel 1 had, or the end of Sky 2nd had, or the end of Zero had. And I guess it's fair that it doesn't, because it is... Cold Steel 2 is the middle point of the arc. 3, 4, and then Reverie are the latter half and then conclusion of the arc. So, it feeling like a midpoint makes sense. It's just a little disappointing when you compare it to the other equivalents of Sky 2nd, which was also the midpoint of its arc, and Zero, which is a, like, sub-midpoint of the whole... this part of the... but, you know, and the end of its own arc. It's just a bit of a shame. I feel like Cold Steel 2 could have done so much better, and it was done a little bit dirty, but maybe that's just my opinion, you know? Well, I mean, seeing those lists on Twitter, I'm not the only one that thinks Cold Steel 2 is a bit underwhelming, but it's not a bad game by any stretch. If you want to play it for just a game and you play Cold Steel 1, absolutely play it. I mean, you should, like, why wouldn't you? But it's just brilliant. The story, up until, well, where I took a huge break, and that might be the single most critical part of why I didn't find it as satisfying, is because of the huge break. That's almost certainly why. So I'll chalk it up to that, and you can make your own decision, and other people can make their own decision. You can see other people's opinions as well. But that's my conclusion on Cold Steel 2, is underwhelmed. Not disappointed, just slightly underwhelmed. Because I was satisfied with basically everything up until the conclusion, and then it's just the conclusion falls a bit flat, if I'm being entirely honest. Partly because I was spoiled a little bit by knowing characters in a future game, and also, I feel like... But genuinely, one of those moments, I think, is just genuinely poorly handled. I think the reveal of who Reen's real dad is just really, really poorly handled. I think it's just not handled properly. It feels like it's just over too fast, it just happens, and then it's brushed away and it's moved on, and it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel good enough. Obviously, speaking of a certain someone, Gileath Osborne is a fantastic villain. Oh my lord, was he fantastic. Now, his not being dead was, again, spoiled by Azure, because it's stated that Osborne is in charge of the annexation of Crossbell, and it was his plan that put it in motion, and that he's around again, and even though if you play Cold, you know he's dead. So, that his return is spoiled by playing Zero Land, which again I feel like also takes away from that big impact at the end. So yeah, that's really the takeaway from Cold Steel 2, is it's slightly underwhelming. Cold Steel 1's a nice, nice, neutral, pretty good starting point. Cold Steel 2 carries it on, does really well, and then falls flat at the final hurdle. As for Cold Steel 3, well, I'll talk about it in more detail when I beat it, and 4, because I'm probably going to... In fact, no, I'll do a separate video, an individual video for 4. That way I can be more focused than this, where I'm rambling about 2 games at once. But, 2 games that I haven't played in, like, months as well. But Cold Steel 3? Oh, boy, Cold Steel 3 is fucking incredible. This game has come out swinging, and it has not stopped throwing punches. Oh, my god, Cold Steel 3 is incredible. But we'll talk about that in greater detail in probably about a month or so, because it's going to take me a while to beat. But, nonetheless, let me know your thoughts on Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 in the comments below, and potentially any other Trails games if you want to go watch my other videos. I should probably make a playlist for all my reviews of them and, like, discussions. But yeah, nonetheless, that's what I've got to say. Oh, actually, I guess... No, I'm not done yet. The biggest gripe, actually, with the Cold Steel arc, despite how much I love Class 7, they don't feel like a group. They feel like they're all kind of just held together by Reen. And they don't really have... Yeah, you can see, like, there's some good connections. Like, there's obviously, Laura and Fee have a good bond. Elliot and Gaius kind of feel like they're good... Like, they're friends. Obviously, Marcius and, Eustace have their little rivalry going on. But again, they don't feel like they're all a big group that are connected together. They feel like there are a couple of people that connect together, and then they're all kind of just linked together by Reen. Link? Combat link. But, yeah, it feels like they're just not as solid of a group as, say, the SSS or the LaBelle gang. And I think it's just because you get so many of them all in one go. There's a ton of them all at once, and they're just not given enough time to fully flesh out. Even across the 2 games. It's a bit of a shame, really. that they don't quite match up to. But to be fair, matching up to the quality of the SSS and everyone from LaBelle, it was an incredibly hard task. But I don't think they even came close. At least, as characters, yeah, they're all pretty good, but there's the unity between them all. And the fact that certain character moments and reveals are hidden behind bonding events is a little bit detrimental. If you don't do those bonding events, you might miss out on something that might make you like or dislike a character, more or less. So, slight gripes here and there about, you know, some of that, but nonetheless, not bad games at all. As for a whole arc, I think Cold Steel 1 to 2 is the weakest of the 3 that I've played. However, Cold Steel 3 and likely 4 will change that. Cold Steel 3 has absolutely changed that, but 4 we'll have to see. But yeah, so far my ranking of the games is Sky first, Cold Steel 1, Cold Steel 2, Sky second, 0, Sky third, Azure, and I'm not telling you where I'm putting Cold Steel 3 yet, because I've not finished it, so I can't place it anyway yet. But anyway, with that out of the way, I'm going to say you've been new, leave a like, comment, sub, shove it around, notification bell, you know your stuff. With that out of the way, I'm going to say you've been new. I've said that twice. What the hell am I doing? Let's start. For now.